Hello students, in today's lecture we'll be discussing one of the most important concepts involved in software engineering, that is feasibility. What is feasibility study and the different types of feasibility that we need to ensure that are fulfilled before we start developing the system or the software. What is basically feasibility study? It is basically conducted to check or measure how beneficial or practical the development of the information system will be to any organization. Basically, the information systems that we are going to design or that the developers are going to design are very costly to the management of the company. So there are different types of costs that are associated with these information system, and every management of any organization wants to analyze the benefits that will be provided by the proposed information system. This is basically then it is the cost and the benefits are compared with the different alternatives that are required to create the information system. Basically, the companies asked for the conduction of feasibility study is to see that in how much duration the money invested in the information system will be paid back by it. It can also actually analyze that the benefit that they are actually wanting from that information system, well, whether will be achieved or not. Basically, it be in nutshell, we can say that feasibility study will lay down the grounds whether the development of system should further go on or should be stopped. Then what is basically the feasibility study does? Number one is it provides an abstract problem definition. Number two, formulation of different solution strategies. Number three is analysis of alternative solution strategies to compare their benefits and shortcomings. In short, basically it will provide us the reasons of how, when, and where the system will be developed. Also, when we talk about feasibility study, it will answer us to the three questions. Number one, is there a new and a better way to do the job that will benefit the user or the organization? Also, what are the cost and savings of the alternatives? And third, what is recommended? So all these points will be actually laid down in the feasibility study or will be studied under feasibility study. Then these are the steps that are basically involved in feasibility analysis, or we can say that these are the steps that will be considered or the steps that should be performed so as to complete to get a final output in the proper format after the feasibility study is done. Number one is there needs to be a project team and a project leader should be appointed. Then we need to develop system flowcharts. Flowcharts are basically that will help us to know whether how the data is going to flow from one module to the other. Then identify the deficiency of current system and set goals. Basically, that what was the need for developing this information system? From where did the need arises? Then enumerate the alternate solution or potential candidate systems to meet goals. Again, there will be millions of, or we could say number of options that we can choose to develop the system. So we need to find or we need to analyze all the alternatives. Then determine the feasibility of each alternative in terms of technical, operational, etc. All these types of feasibility we'll study in the further slides. Then weight the performance and cost effectiveness of each candidate system. This is very essential. We need to see what cost we are going to employ on that system and what benefits the final system will give us. Then rank the other alternatives and select the best candidate system. Once we have found the alternatives, we need to rank it according to the benefits and the cost that we are getting from that alternative, then prepare a system proposal or final project directive to management for approval. That final final output that will come out of the feasibility study should be in a documented format that is given to the top managers to study and finalize whether the further development of system should be allowed or not. Then this is the graphical representation of what happens in the feasibility study. The different alternatives are identified. Then they are made to go through operational, economic, technical feasibility. Then the risks are evaluated, and finally an alternative is chosen. Then types of feasibility. Number one is economic feasibility. Basically, economic feasibility comes into count with, can be summed up in the terms of costs and benefits. It is basically the most frequently used method for evaluating the effectiveness of a candidate system. More commonly, it is known as cost benefit analysis. The procedure is to determine the benefits and savings that are expected from a candidate system and compare them with the cost that will be actually incurred. If the benefits outweighs the cost, then the decision is made to design and implement the system. Otherwise, chosen, and it will be seen whether the system designing or development is approved or not. Then comes the operational feasibility. Operational feasibility basically employs that whether all the resources that are required for the system, for the proposed system, will be present or not. It is basically the degree of providing service to requirements is analyzed along, and how much easy product will be to operate and maintenance after deployment. Along with the other operational scopes are determining the usability of the product, determining suggested solutions by the software development team is acceptable or not. Also, the users that are going to use that system, whether they will be able to operate that system or not. Operational feasibility basically is basically analyzed in terms of the after the final deployment of the system. It will include all the hardware, the software resources, the personnel that will be required to operate that system properly. Then comes the technical feasibility. Technical feasibility basically centers around the existing computer systems, that is the hardware and software, etc., and to what extent it can support the proposed addition. For example, if I have a computer that is operating at 80% capacity and then running another application could overload the system or require additional hardware. This involves financial considerations to accommodate technical enhancement. If the budget is a serious constraint, then the project is judged not feasible. Another example could be, I have a laptop that has a RAM of 4 GB. Now I want to install a software into my laptop that will work efficiently if my RAM was 8 GB. So basically, if I want to run a software on 4 GB, that will require me to install another 4 GB RAM, which will increase the cost of increase my initial cost. So if I can afford that extra 4 GB of hard disk, then only my project or my work is feasible. If not, there and then that project can be nullified. Then is schedule feasibility, another important constraint. Schedule feasibility basically involves that timely delivery of the final software. suppose I have an information system that I require in 6 months, but the development team or the people who will be making that information system, they say that the system cannot be built up in 6 months. It requires at least 8 to 10 months. Then the system that I required in 6 months and the one I'll be getting after 8 months, that system will be not of much use to me. Let's take an example of this pandemic that is right now going on. We have been suffering from this pandemic since March, since maybe December last 2019. And now if I say that I will get a vaccine in 2021, there is not a timely, maybe tomorrow or in a month is better than getting the vaccine in 2021. Similarly, if my system, whatever I have designed or whatever I want, I need to have it on time and within that time constraint. So we need to analyze that system from every aspect, that whether I'll be able to get that system in time. So I should move on with the development further. Then comes the behavioral feasibility. Basically, behavioral feasibility, it is actually, we can say that it is entirely depending upon the users of that system. Users in sense that whosoever will be using that system, or you could say if we are putting a new system into the organization, what will be the reaction of the users to it? Now, suppose I want to create a system, or I am proposing a system that requires people with knowledge of ASP.NET and Java. But currently I am having employees that are good at C++ and C. There will be quite a good resilient to that system, because the already existing employees are not sure that they will be able to learn ASP.NET or Java. First sentence says, it evaluates and estimates the user attitude or behavior towards the development of new system. It helps in determining if the system requires special effort to educate, retrain, transfer, and change an employee's job status on new ways of conducting business. So behavioral feasibility is equivalently important as compared to other feasibility, because if the users won't be able to accept the new system, then the company or the organization will be quite at loss. Suppose if there's a government agency or a government organization that wants to switch from a manual system to an automated system, there will be chances of laying off of employees. And if we go about the policies of any government job, there are chances that a person put into a situation of accepting or not that system. System, if we want to put it into our organization, we need to retrain our employees, we need to make them learn the new techniques to handle that system. So there is no 100% guaranteed chance that the users will be able to actually learn that system. So here also an important aspect is to be cleared, that whether that system will be totally useful to the organization or not. So when we are considering the behavioral feasibility, we need to take into mind the cost that will be incurred on educating, retraining, and transferring the employees. Here is the end for the feasibility study. Everything is being stated in all these slides. Thank you.